This video is going to tell you the top 5 CNC router bits you need to start off with as a new CNC router creator. If you just got into CNC, congratulations, but I know it can be really overwhelming to figure out what CNC router bits you need to start off with. So by the time you're done with this video, you're going to know exactly what bits you need to start carving on your CNC router. I'm Garrett Fromme, a CNC router expert, and when I was brand new in CNC routing, I had no idea what bits I needed. I went out and just bought what looked right. 6 years later, they still sit in my toolbox, and I want to save you that kind of hassle and make sure you start right off with the bits that you need to carve anything on your CNC router. The 5 must-haves. And we're going to start right off with CNC bit number 1. Let's go. IDC Woodcraft.com. CNC bit number 1, the very first bit that you need to have is the surfacing bit. This is the most important CNC router bit that you can have, and it is the most versatile. It actually has 6 different functions. So here's why the surfacing bit is number 1. When you get your CNC router set up, you're going to have a spoil board on it. You're going to put pieces of MDF on your machine, and that spoil board is not going to be level. It's going to be wavy, it's going to be at different thicknesses, and the surface is not going to be parallel to the motion of the machine. And that means when you clamp a project down on an unsurfaced spoil board, your carve can come out looking kind of funny. So the very first thing is you have to use this to surface your spoil board to get your machine ready. That's use number 1. Use number 2 is your project material. When you get material from the store, it is rarely consistent in its thickness. So you want to always surface down that raw material when you get it from the store, even though it's milled. The third reason is slab flattening or raw boards like this. This is a piece of oak, and now it needs to be smoothed down for me to be able to carve on it. The fourth reason is to flatten warped boards. This board is warped very slightly, and I would need to get that warp out of there for this board to be flat. Number 5 is going to be one of the projects that you're going to be working on at some point, and you're going to have to use your surfacing bit, and that is on your inlay projects. We have a feather inlay that I have made here, one of the very coolest projects that I love. Beautiful walnut on oak. But when you put that inlay in, you've got the raw material set up like this, and you've got to mill that down so the inlay is nice and flush. So you need the surfacing bit to smooth out that inlay. And finally, number 6 is if you botch a project, you can always surface that off and restart on your project. Those are the 6 reasons why you have a surfacing bit, the different uses, and why it's the most versatile and most important bit. Not all surfacing bits are made the same. And that's why we at IDC Woodcraft design our own bits. And this is what we've done to this bit here. It's actually called the Ultra Smooth Cutting Surfacing Bit because that's exactly what it does. We added a 4th flute. Most surfacing bits have pre-flutes. The flutes are the cutting edges. But we also modified the grind angle on the side and on the bottom of the bit. And what that enables this bit to do is cut faster, last longer, and cut cleaner. And that's why it's called the Ultra Smooth Surfacing Bit. On this note, when you watch other videos where people are telling you the top 5, 6, or 7 bits that you need, they always put the surfacing bit last. And it is the most important bit that you will have. You have to have that number 1. And so that's why I have put it at number 1. Now let's get on to number 2. CNC router bit number 2 that you need to have is the 1/4" downcut Endmill. This guy right here. The 1/4" Endmill is a bit that you will use a lot to remove a lot of material out of your project and cut your projects out. So let's take, for example, this. This is home sign. It's a fairly large project. And all this white area needs to be removed to get the raised letter effect on the project. So the bit is going to come in, it's going to go back and forth, remove all this material to end up with these details. The 1/4" down cutter is good for large detail projects like this. Another reason that the 1/4" down cutter is used is material removal. For example, on this welcome sign, we got to remove a lot of material here, but we're going to come in with smaller bits to get all the other details in this welcome sign. But we got to remove the material, so we want to use our workhorse bit to do most of that work. Now, when it comes to the down cutters, One of the big benefits of it is it doesn't leave what we call chip out or tear out at the top of the project. When the downcut end mill is turning, it's spinning just like that. So you can see that it is actually cutting downward, and that's what's creating the sharp edge. Whereas there's another complementary bit, it's called the upcut end mill. It's the same size, 1/4 inch, but when it spins, it's going upward. And what that's doing is that's going to cause tear out in a project. As you can see right here, as this upcut end mill is running across the project, it is tearing up the top of it. And here's the difference between the upcut and the downcut. When you look at the one on the left, you can see all the tear out that it caused all along the cut, whereas the one on the right, which is the downcut end mill, you can see the cuts are nice and clean, and that's why we want to go with a downcut as one of your first CNC bits. CNC bit number 3 that you need to have to get started is the 1/8 inch downcut end mill. This guy right here. So think of this bit as the little brother to the 1/4 inch downcut end mill. The 1/4 inch is a big bit, and so it is designed to remove a lot of material and do macro type of stuff, but when it comes to finer details, it starts to lack, and that's where this 1/8 inch down cutter comes into play. And I want to give you an example right here on this project. You can see on this E right here, we got nice rounded corners. If this was smaller, that wouldn't look good when it's finished carving. So you can see here on this other welcome sign that I never finished, it has much tighter corners, and that's because I brought the 1/8 inch bit into it. That enabled me to capture details like the corner of the M and other details that you will want to capture in your CNC projects. Another reason for the 1/8 inch down cutter goes along the same lines. When you're doing material removal, like we would with the 1/4 inch down cutter in this welcome sign to get rid of all that material, when it comes into these smaller areas, the 1/4 inch is not going to fit. So we want to come in behind it with the 1/8 inch to get some of these other little areas to clear them out. So your final bit doesn't have to do a lot of work. The best thing about the 1/8 inch down cutter is making smaller projects like these hot plate things that I made here. If I use a 1/4 inch on this, the corners aren't going to look so good. It's just not going to look good. So you get the nice corner shape right there, and you get nice detail. As you can see in this video right here, it cuts it out quite nicely. When it comes to these down cutting bits, these are very common CNC router bits that you will be using all the time. These are your core bits to do all of your 2D project work. So the 1/4 inch down cutter and the 1/8 inch down cutter are your first 2 carving bits after the surfacing bit. The 1/8 inch down cutter is a down cutter like the 1/4 inch down cutter that you want to start with. So that means it's not going to give you the tear out, it's not going to give you the chip out. It's the complementary bit to its big brother, the 1/4 inch down cut. CNC router bit number 4 that you have to have, or really want to have, when you get your first CNC router bits is the 90-degree V-bit. That is this guy right here. It's a solid carbide bit, and it is called a bladed style bit. In other words, each cutting edge is actually a forward cutting edge. It's kind of like a knife blade, and that enables you to get really super clean cuts. This is the type of bit that adds the elegance to CNC projects. For example, this guy right here, this Home Sweet Home sign has a lot of detail and is using kind of script type font. It's got the nice swirls here, and it's got a nice little groove along the outer edge. And you're going to notice something here. You see these letters. It's kind of fat right there, and then it gets thin right there. Well, your down cutters can't do that. The V-bits do. This is something called V-carving, where the software allows that bit to go down and come up to capture the letter characteristics and the various design characteristics that you're going to find right here. The 90-degree V-bit enables you to make larger projects, larger signs like this with this Elegance. Here's another example. One of my very first projects that I ever made that I'm super proud of, worked on, was this "Don't follow me, you won't make it" Jeep sign. I am a Jeeper. The thing with the V-bits, and particularly the 90-degree V-bits, you can make the stars on the flags that you want to make, and all this lettering that goes on around here. So all the lettering was done with a 90-degree V-bit. But I want you to take a close look at this. You can see how poor quality that is in these letters, these cuts. And I can tell you why. And it's because The very first CNC router bit I got was off of Amazon. Super cheap bit, cost like $5 or $10 for a set of 3 V-bits, and that was the cut that it left. That's why we want to focus on solid carbide, high quality CNC router bits. The 90-degree V-bit also enables you to cut chamfers like I have on this Jeep sign there. So that adds a little more accent to your project. Here's another example right here with this welcome sign. This Smith's was V-carved with this 90-degree V-bit. It's a larger sign, and you want the 90-degree to enable you to get these larger signs with this V-bit. This just adds a lot of character to the project. I want to show you one more example of why you want a 90-degree V-bit. So we got this welcome sign right here. And you can see in the lettering that all the lettering is very thin. And when you get to the end of various parts of the letter right here on the W, it's very thin. Down here at the end with the E, it's really thin. If you try to cut this out with the 1/8 down cutter, you are going to get broken letters because there's no support behind the letter. So you use the V-bit to come in and add that taper along the whole outer edge of these letters, and it adds all kinds of strength to the project so you don't get broken pieces on your projects, which makes you kind of go, dang, that's just not as good of a project because of those little boo-boos. The 90-degree V-bit is for larger projects where you want to add the elegance to signs like the Home Sweet Home sign. Definitely number 4. Number 5 is the bit that's going to add even more elegance and smaller details. Bit number 5 is my all-time favorite CNC router bit to use to get the details in the projects that I want to get, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. It is the 60-degree V-bit. This guy right here. So let's do a little comparison between the 60-degree and the 90-degree V-bit. So this is the 90-degree V-bit and this is the 60-degree V-bit. They are both bladed V-bits. The difference is the angle at the top. So the 90 has a wide angle, 45 degrees on that side, 45 degrees on that side, makes it 90 degrees. This is a 60-degree, and that finer point enables us to get much better detail in your projects. The 60-degree V-bit is going to pick up stuff that the 90-degree V-bit can't. So for example, in this, don't follow me, you won't make a Jeep sign. This area right here to accent the rocks here was done with a 90-degree V-bit, but these finer lines, we need to get a little bit deeper in these lines, and this is where the 60-degree V-bit adds that little more detail. Now this project is a bit rough, but the 60 added all the little accents to the Jeep itself to make it look good. The reason I like this bit so much is because it does 2 really, really cool things. Number 1 is you can get really fine into the details. So let's take a look at the font on this project right here. It says live, laugh, love, and play games. It's a project I made for my niece Isabel. It's a card and game piece holder. She doesn't have the use of one of her hands, so we have this. But if you look really close at the lettering, you can see that these are very fine lines around there. And this 60-degree V-bit is what actually carved that. So this is where you're going to start picking up the really, really fine details on your project. So that's one of my favorite uses for this bit, or why I like it so much, because you can get into that really cool detail. Here's the other reason. It's when you're getting into complex or detailed inlays. So you see this feather inlay has lots of corners and characteristics, particularly right in here, over here, everywhere across this. So when we create an inlay, there are 2 types of inlays you can create. One is a straight inlay, which is a little more challenging to do on a CNC router. The other one is a V-shaped inlay, and that's exactly what this is. So when you make the male piece, which is right here, this fits in there as a wedge, and it gives you much more surface area, and it comes in and conforms to the inlay female area much better. But the 60-degree V-bit is the one I like to use to get that angle. It just works a lot better while keeping the detail. And that's why I like this CNC router bit so much, because you can get all these fine details on inlays and in your smaller fonts. You can do script fonts. what have you. It's just the one that adds in all the elegance at the end of the day. And that's why I think, after all the years I've done CNC work, that this is the fifth bit, the 60-degree V-bit. So we've just covered the absolute top 5 CNC router bits that you need to have to start carving on your CNC router. But let's recap real quick to make sure you know what they are. The 1-inch ultra smooth cutting surfacing bit, the 1/4-inch downcut end mill, the 1/8-inch downcut end mill, the 90-degree bladed style V-bit, and the 60-degree bladed style V-bit. Now, because these are absolute basic essential bits for any CNC router beginner, it was only natural for me at IDC Woodcraft to put a set of these bits together in a bundle. So those are available. It's called the Essential Starter Kit, and I will link that down below in the description of this video. But before you actually go there, I do want to talk to you a little bit more about these bits. I want you to notice about the shank sizes. All these bits are a 1/4-inch shank, with the exception of the 1/8 down cutter. So with that set, you also get an adapter collet that will fit into your 1/4-inch collet, and that just fits in like that, and then it goes into your CNC. But that's not the only CNC bit that I think you need. So I'm throwing in another bit into this set that is going to enable you to do one more thing, and that is to drill. Many people like to create cribbage boards, and so they need to be able to drill. So a free bit that I am throwing into this set is the 1/8 diameter upcut end mill. It's this bit right here. Now, what's the difference between the 1/8 upcut and the 1/8 downcut? I did explain that a bit in the 1/4-inch diameter downcutting end mill, where we have the upcut and the downcut. So this is the upcutter. When you turn it, the spirals go upward, which means they are pulling chips up. And it's got a cutting edge at the bottom, so you can do drilling with this. You cannot and do not ever drill with a downcutting end mill, because it compacts the chips down into the hole and will burn up your tool and possibly cause a fire. But this 1/8 upcut end mill, this is a free bit that I throw into the kit so that you have that drilling capability. You can also use it as something of a roughing bit in the finer details. And that, my friend, is the absolute top 5 CNC router bits that every single CNC router owner absolutely has to start off with to make anything on their CNC router. But there are certain things that these 5-piece sets that are out there will not let you do that most CNC router owners really want to do. Think of 3D carving, or doing a really fine detail, grandma's recipe type of carvings, and adding the accents to projects that make them look a lot more professional. That's why I think that there are 4 more CNC router bits that you really want to get right up front to give you the ultimate flexibility to do all that stuff. Besides, you're a beginner now, but you will be getting these other CNC router bits eventually. So let's dive into those to see what bits are going to give you that capability. These are the 4 CNC bits that I'm talking about, and we're going to start right off with this guy right here. It is the 1/16 downcut end mill. This one right there. This is the baby brother to the 1/4-inch downcut and the 1/8-inch downcut end mill. And the benefit to having this is so you can carve extra fine details. So let's take a look at this project. This is a block, Merry Christmas block, cute little quaint project. And let's take a look at these holly leaves. And you can see that these corner of these leaves are quite sharp. That is done with this CNC bit right here. The 1/8-inch bit cannot capture that sharpness. In fact, this entire project was done with this bit. The string for the lights and all the little cutouts there, and the 16th will actually capture all the fine corners in the lettering and other details. The 1/16 is one of the bits that you want to add to your arsenal right up front. The next CNC bit that I highly recommend to add to your top 5 is this one right here. It's the Extreme Detail 30-degree V-bit. You can see this is super sharp. When it comes to really high detail in projects, there is no other CNC router bit that can do that except for this bit. So let's take a look at this project right here. This is a doily, and as we scan across it, you can see how detailed this project is. We're going to lay a quarter on top of it so you can really get an idea of the comparison. And you look at the super fine details on this. This 30-degree extreme detail engraving V-bit is the one that can do this. Another thing I used, or a project that I used this bit on, was this little project that my grandson had drawn up a couple of years ago. A gift from Mom, and I did that with the 30-degree V-bit. Now this could have been done with a 60, but I chose the 30. The 30 did good. What is the 30-degree V-bit good for? That kind of detail right here, and those projects that are grandma's recipe type of things, the handwriting projects, where you really want to capture all the exquisite detail in that handwriting exactly as it is. So the 30-degree V-bit is another bit that you want to add to your CNC arsenal right up front. The next one is the 1/4-inch ball nose end mill. So that is this guy right here, and you can see that it is rounded on the end. This is the guy that will allow you to add the accents to projects to make them look more professional, make them pop. So let's grab these two projects right here. First we got this welcome sign, and then we have this welcome sign. Let's take a closer look at them to see what the 1/4-inch ball nose does to add accents to projects. So the first welcome sign has been cut out and it has nice square corners. It's a good looking sign, but it has no character to it on the corners. Whereas this welcome sign, even though it's a little bleached out, does have that character on the corner. And this just adds more accent to the entire project to make it look a lot better. This is adding a lot of character to your projects outside of that square look. And that's what the 1/4-inch ball nose end mill is good for, adding the enhancements and character to your CNC projects to make them pop. Now I gotta clear this off my table here because I gotta get a few more projects so we can talk about the next thing that this bit can do that almost every CNC creator I've ever talked to wants to do. Hold on. We're back and I've got the projects out that I want to show you, but my friend, I gotta pull up a chair on this one because I want to talk to you. What we're about to talk about is what almost every CNC creator I've ever talked to wants to do. 3D carving. And that's where the ball nose bit starts to come into play. It adds the accents, but when you have a nice rounded edge on an end mill, that enables it to work around contours. And contours means 3D. Let's start off with this larger 3D project right here. A woman holding an American flag. You can see the waviness in the flag, the stars, the stripes, her hair, the contours of her arm, her fingers. This is a larger 3D project that was done with the 1/4-inch ball nose end mill. And I gotta tell you, there's nothing like watching a 3D carve come to life. Now, the 1/4-inch ball nose is only the start of 3D carving because you can get really creative with the 3D stuff. And that's where a finer ball nose comes into play and the fourth bit that you want to add to your top 5 set. It's the 1/8 ball nose end mill. It's going to be this guy right here. And when we take a look at that, it too has a rounded edge on the very tip there. And that enables you to get a lot finer detail because of that rounded nature of the bit. So we got a project right here that was carved out with the 1/8 ball nose end mill. And it's this hops flower. This is the actual flower that beer hops is made from. Very cool little project and lots of detail and contour to it. You can see the leaves and the little lines in the leaves, the veins going around like that. The project has a lot of depth on it. This is done with the 1/8 ball nose end mill. So this is where ball nose comes into play. The 1/4-inch can do larger projects. The 1/8-inch ball nose can get into start doing details just like that. But when it comes into seriously high detail 3D carves, it's going to require another bit, which we will talk about later, but I do want to show you an example of what I mean. The Great Seal of the United States project right here. We got little olive leaves with veins in them. We got the stars at the top, the arrows, the letters, the stars all the way around. So there's so much detail in this project. The 1/8 ball nose can't do that. We'll get to that in the other series of bits that you'll probably want to get into. But at this point, we have covered the other 4 bits that you really want to think about starting off with on top of the top 5 bits that will give you a lot more creativity. So these bits are the 16th inch downcut end mill to get that really fine detail. Then we got the 30-degree V bit, so you can do this real tight detail like doily like I showed you before, and the handwriting, grandma's recipes. And then we get into the 1/4 inch ball nose to add the accents to your projects, and the 1/8 inch ball nose, which is really a good starting point to do these 3D carves. So that's 9 CNC router bits that you really want to start off with up front if you really want to have the creative stretch that you want to have right in the beginning. The top 5 will leave you very limited. This expands your creativity significantly. I am quite strong on having these extra 4 bits in your starter set because I don't want you to shortchange yourself right out of the gate. You've invested in a piece of equipment and had all these ideas in your head about all these projects you want to make. With the 5-piece set, as you know, you will be limited. The 5-piece set is there if you're on a budget, and that will get you rolling. But eventually, we have to get more bits if we want to create other projects like these 3D carves. So that's why these 9 CNC router bits are what I think really needs to be put in a beginner set. And that's why I have put a set together that has these 9 bits. I call it the only truly complete starter set for CNC router beginners. And the truly complete CNC router bit starter set is what you see right here. It contains the first top 5 essentials that you need to have to carve anything, plus what we just talked about, the 1/4 inch ball nose, the 1/8 inch ball nose, the 1/16 down cutter, and the 30-degree engraving V-bit. You still get that 1/8 upcut end mill for free and the 2 adapter collets for your 1/8 shank bits. So altogether, this is 12 pieces in one set. So this whole starter set is linked down below in the description of this video with the top 5 bits, and every single bit that I've talked about so far is also linked down in the description individually. We've covered 2 CNC router bit sets. The 5-piece absolute basic essentials CNC router bits. If you're on a budget, you want to get these 5 bits. However, in order to get true creativity and flexibility, you want to start looking at the only truly complete CNC router bit starter set, 12 pieces. All these sets and these bits will be linked down below in the description, or you can get any of them at IDC Woodcraft. As a CNC beginner trying to understand what CNC router bits you need to start off with in your CNC journey, you now know the top 5 essentials and other bits that you want to really consider getting right up front, and you know why. But what if you want to create cribbage boards with all those holes in them? Or create those LED signs, cutting plastic. Or if you want to do those hyper detailed 3D carves. This set won't necessarily get you there. So I want to introduce to you 7 more CNC router bits that will enable you to do some of these things and to do a few other things that are fairly common in CNC. So we're going to head over to my CNC router so I can show you some more projects and show you these bits. Before I do that, if you're getting something out of this video, then please take a minute and give me that thumbs up and a comment down below. Tell me what you've learned out of this video. That'll tell me if I'm getting you in the right direction. And you might want to consider subscribing. With that, my friend, we are going to jump over to the CNC router. Let's go. Just before I get into these final CNC router bits that I want to make sure that you know about, I do want to talk to you about where you're at as a CNC beginner, because I remember those days when I was a beginner, first got my machine, and all I wanted to do was just carve and make stuff. Unfortunately, I ran into a lot of mistakes where I ruined my CNC projects. And in the years since that I've worked with many CNC creators, I've seen them ruin a lot of projects in the beginning of their journey as well. And it's usually because of one thing, and that is the setup of the project. Before you actually hit the start button, there are a lot of little steps that you need to do to make sure your router is configured right, your XYZ 0 points are checked and set up right in your control, and many other little steps. And any one of those steps that you miss, that sets you up for failure. Not only do I want to make sure you understand what CNC bits that you need to start off with as a beginner, but also I want to set you up for success where you do not make these mistakes that many beginners make. And that's why I have come up with the CNC router checklist. This is a setup checklist to make sure that your project is set up properly before you hit the start button, so your CNC project will come out exactly the way you want it to, with no boo-boos. It covers your material checks, your CNC router bit checks, and your start point checks. Following this step by step is going to ensure that your project is going to come out the way you want it. This is a free download to you. I will link it down below in the description. It has explanation of everything on here so that you know why this is in place and what each check is about. So get this, download this PDF. It's all yours, free, link down below. Let's talk about these final bits that I want to make sure you know about. And the first bit I want to show you is the keyhole cutter. This is the bit that cuts the slots in the backs of signs so you can hang them on the wall. This bit will come down into the material and it will cut across and come back and leave that little hanging slot like you see on projects. This has a dual diameter cutter edge on it, and that's why it's so good for hanging signs. If you plan on making signs, you definitely want to get the keyhole cutter. The next bit I want to talk to you about is if you want to cut plastic, like LED signs, or in this case, I have a marble maze that I made here, and the maze body is made out of wood, and it's got a plastic cover. So I need the proper bit to cut out this cover, which is plexiglass. There's cast acrylic, there's HDPE, there's all kinds of plastics. So what kind of bit do you want to use for cutting plastic? It's called the O-flute bit. And that is these guys right here. They're a very interesting looking CNC router bit, but they're designed to get the plastic out of the way really fast. So we got a 1/4 inch O-flute bit. That's good for cutting out larger plastic projects. And in the case of the project I just showed you, the plastic cover, there's a 1/8 O-flute bit. These are designed for plastic. If you try to use these other bits that I showed you, then what's going to happen is the plastic is going to melt while it's cutting and it's going to stick to the project. So you want to definitely consider O-flute bits if you're going to be cutting plastic. The next CNC router bit that I want to make sure that you know about is if you want to make cribbage boards on your CNC router. Cribbage boards, as you know, have a lot of holes drilled in them. In this case, this 3-player board has over 400 holes in it. That takes a long time with traditional means. It can take up to an hour or an hour and a half. You want to be able to knock that down to 10 minutes. With end mills, like the 1/8 upcut end mill that I'm giving you for free in the 2 sets, that has to peck, and it will take a long time to peck each hole. It has to go in, clear out those chips, go back in and clear out the chips. So that's where a drill bit comes in. This is the lightning drill bit from IDC Woodcraft. It is specifically designed for the high speed of CNC routers. So that all you have to do is just plunge once, 1 second per hole, as you see in this video. Very, very quick. If you want to make cribbage boards, you definitely want to consider getting this. Now let's talk about the hyper detail 3D carves. This is where things get really fun and where the projects that you make can really, really pop. So let's take a look first at a couple of projects that are really high in detail. I showed you this project here before. That's the hops flower. That's done with a 1/8 ball nose bit. But when we start getting into detail like this lion here, look at the detail on that mane. That 1/8 ball nose is not going to get that detail. Or the Great Seal of the United States. There's a ton of detail here. So the 1/8 ball nose is not going to capture that detail. So we need what's called a taper ball nose bit. And that's what these two guys are right here. The fine taper ball nose bit, which has a nice finer radius than the 1/8 ball nose. And these are designed in such a way that they're very rigid. And they're designed for 3D carves and inlays. And then we have the ultra fine detail bit, the taper 3D carving bit, and that ultra fine is what's going to get that super high detail like what we have in the lion's mane. When we're looking at projects, let's come in and take a look at this one. This is that game board I made for my niece. This flower is done with the ultra fine taper ball nose bit. So we can capture all the detail, the ridges in the flower, and same with the lilies right here. If you want to do the 3D carving, then these are the bits that you definitely want to get. The last CNC router bit is a little bit different, but it is going to make your projects go much faster. You remember in the beginning, I said the 1/4 inch down cutter is your workhorse bit. It's the one that's going to be removing a lot of material. It's going to cut out your pockets to a finished size, and it's going to cut projects out. But all that material removal is wearing down that bit. So there is a CNC bit out there that's designed to remove that material very quickly. And it is this CNC router bit right here. It is the beast. It is a roughing bit. And you can see it's got all these knurled edges on it. This bit is designed to move very quickly with a very high step over. What that means is your 1/4 inch down cutter has certain settings in your software, so it's going to run optimally on your CNC router. But those settings will make it take a lot of time as it's removing that material. This bit, the roughing bit, the beast, is designed to have the settings much higher so it can hog out that material. As you can see here in this video, where we are starting to carve out a very large project. It is the soldier kneeling down in front of the battlefield cross. We have to remove all that material before we can get to the tapered ball nose bit. And this is the bit that's going to get you there. So you want to definitely consider getting this bit sometime. Most of the time, CNC creators end up getting it because it saves them a ton of time on their CNC router, and it spares the wear and tear on the bits that do the finish cut. So that's the 7th bit. We covered the keyhole bit, the 1/8 drill for cribbage boards, the 2 taper ball nose bits to get the higher detail in the 3D carves, and we covered the 1/8 drill bit, the O-flute bits, the ones that'll cut plastic, and we've covered the beast, this roughing bit. These are the bits you want to consider getting. Now, if you're a CNC creator that you just want to go all in, then these bits are also available in a set that I put together. It's called the Pro set. It includes the 5 essentials that you have to do anything on your CNC router, plus the extra 4 CNC router bits that I think you want to start off with, plus the rest of the CNC bits that we just covered. You also get a set of digital calipers. You can't do this stuff without digital calipers. I see a lot of creators working with tape measures to try to get thicknesses just right. Calipers are a tool of the trade of CNC routers. And the Pro set that we offer, the all-in set, if you're that serious, you're going to get that too. And that set as well will be linked down below in this video. If anything you got out of this video is an understanding of CNC router bits that you need to be starting with and why we use these different bits, then again, please give me that thumbs up and let me know that you learned something out of this video. And if you want to know more, then definitely subscribe. And remember, down below in the description are some free download links for you. For example, the video list of all the videos in the IDC Woodcraft YouTube channel in an organized fashion. You'll get this guy right there, the proper chucking of CNC router bits. Definitely get this. And of course, all the CNC router bits I mentioned and the sets, they are all linked down below. Or you can go to idcwoodcraft.com and go get the sets from there and pick out other CNC router bits that you might want. There are free resources as well on the idcwoodcraft.com website, so definitely go check that out. And with that, my friend, if you got something out of this video, definitely give me that thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And I will see you in the next video. idcwoodcraft.com